Ho, Uncle Nudge here. Welcome to my Lincoln Block channel. So in 1975, when this pole building was built, I wonder if they thought it was a good looking building. Because if they did, they were wrong. But anyway, it was a decent shop. It was definitely cold in the winter. And something needed to be done. And so I asked the guys at Lincoln Block if we could do anything. And they said, yeah, it's an unconventional build. But, if you've got a little experience, you can probably figure it out. And so I did. Knew it was going to rain a lot. And so my idea was to do it with the roof over my head. So I started out cutting at the bottom nailer, the metal all the way around and everything off the post. So basically it was just the post. Then I got my first Lincoln Block as a pattern. So I knew where to put the lag bolts that go into the cement. So I measured 3 inches from the outside of the cement and used 5.5 inch lag bolts and a bunch of glue. You can see a line there I drew with the 2x8. And then I leveled those both ways because that's what the Lincoln Block is going to sit on. And then I filled any excess underneath with DAP touch and foam spray. And then Lincoln Block has this product that is pretty awesome. At 25% compression, it is waterproof. So then I put the couplers on and the all thread screws. Those are 1/2 inch. And then what you do is you route out the Lincoln Block to accept these plates, adjustable plates, and then you put on your washer and nut. Tighten those down, keep them level because that's basically the foundation of your Lincoln Block. So real important. Then I had one whole level done, one course around the whole building, and I tell you what, it was pretty freaking cool. It was like, wow, this is happening. Then on the bottom one, I used some Flex Seal, and it's a rubberized coating, and it's just an extra protection layer. And so I finished that whole thing around the side and let it dry. And then I got some 8-inch flashing and some 10-inch for some areas and put it on all the way around. And it comes up flush with the tongue portion, not the tongue. And then you put the Z flashing on, and that fits in the groove of the Lincoln Block. So this is kind of a little sequence, kind of like the video I did that shows. This just shows you put a lot of glue around those plates. But here's the block going in at the joint and get it even with that ridge and where to nail it. And it shows it riser there. And I had my wife working outside with the nail gun. It worked out really good on like a Sunday. And so then we had our second level because the first level is covered. And then pretty soon I got going and I had 4 levels up. And so, or 5 levels up, and it was time to do some foam. This corner detail shows the splines actually on my existing posts, and you level those up, and then the Lincoln Block follows those, and you nail the Lincoln Block on the ends to those splines, 2 nails each, and you just work your way up to the top. And here shows from the front, looking at that Lincoln Block, man, that was cool. And at night I'd taken one garage door off, and then I took the other one off and all the hardware off. And it looked a lot different in the shop after that. It was pretty darn cool. It's kind of another view of it. It's so weird not seeing those garage doors there. And there's the garage doors. I was taking the hardware off. And you see all those boards on the right, those are Lincoln Block spline, and they're up to about 10 feet. And rainy night after that. And you can see the splines on the posts, light colored, and they don't go all the way up to the top. You add on to those later. Here's me after work, and I'd have to take all my tools in the wheelbarrow out to the shed so I could lock them up. Here shows the door going up, and it's got double splines. And I'm going to have a raised floor, so they go in the second block is where they started. And so as you do the blocks, you bring them right up to the edge of the double spline without exceeding it, because later you're going to put a foam product and 3/4 inch plywood on there to actually frame it. So now, speaking of foam, I had Andrew from Lincoln Block come out and he did the foam for me. And a little bit later, uh, you're actually going to see him live, and he's going to explain how you foam, basically. So here you can see I got more spline, well, same splines and more blocks. The wall's getting higher, uh, higher and higher. You can see a window starting to form there, and goes pretty quick. Here's another door I started, and you can see at the top of a lot of these I have a beam that goes across there, and it holds those splines in place for the windows and the door, holds them level and the proper distance away, so when you put the blocks on they don't move. Now, man, it's really starting to look like something. And so I took the metal off the front, and it just is crazy. Here's kind of the windows. What you do is you cut off the risers and below the edge of the top board. And I'll kind of go into that later. So here you'd see the doorway. Actually, there's a cross block in there. And what that does is it gives you a chance to level up the two walls, so you keep them both level with each other. And it's also a stability for the doorway and windows. Then the weather got nice, and I took all the metal off except for one little section there that was nailed in. Eventually cut it off, and it's really weird to see outside views I've never seen before. And from the front, and it's like, wow. This actually, Lincoln Block used this on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok, I think, and so that was really cool to see that. Then the weather was going to change. I knew there was going to be wind, and there was, and the rains were going to start. There you can see a cross block on the window too, and you can see my cross blocks up there holding things in place. Now in this window, it's two windows side by side, and you can see I left the tongue on. You cut the tongues off everywhere where the actual window is going to be. I'll tell more about that later. It started to look like something pretty exciting. There's more Lincoln Block. You know, you got to manage that. There's my wife up. Andrew had been up to foam, and it does splatter a little bit, and it hardens, and she's getting the foam out of the top tongue and tongue section, so that way when you put the next block on it, that doesn't interfere with the block placement. And got some those windows. That's the top of the windows now. So I got up to that level in the first section. And it's like, wow, that's what the windows are. And then the door, I got to the top, and the double window there to the top. And it looks like that whole side is to the top. And this is a view out one window. It's pretty cool. I lifted up the plastic. And now that whole front is, and side is to the top of the windows and the top of the doors. Still had some to go in the back there, and looks like I'm just about done. And then with the rains, I had to put more plastic on in the wind. And here's putting up these little blocks. Actually, they're ends of blocks, and you put them against the splines that go in between the windows, and they basically act like spacers. So when you put the window framing in and the trim around the windows, you have an even surface. And so there's a window detail. You actually cut those splines to fit, and then you nail them in. and that's going to be the surface you use to do your window frames. And that's what it looks like open with them cut. And that's the tops of them. And you go through and do all that. And then it snowed, which was pretty unexpected. And so this, I finished up the window sills and filled them in. And this kind of shows the sequence of how you do it. The upper left, you can see I'm with the Sawzall, I'm cutting off the tongue, so it looks like that surface below. And then I cut the blocks to size. Then I pound them in with a block to level, and then you nail them. Looking like something. I even see a little sun. Then I started doing the stain. I was like, this is good weather, so I decided to start putting on the Wood Defender cedar color, and thought I'd take some pictures and show you how it goes on. It sure looks a lot different. But man, what a great product. It goes on so nice and works so good, and it's self-leveling, so you really saturate it on. And that was the next morning after I stained it, a little bit frosty. And more blocks. And then I started having to use a scaffold, and so I just made my own scaffolds, and I could get up there, and I finished those side walls up to their maximum height. And then I was going to start working on the gable ends. Up above the truss was a kind of a tricky spot, and you can see I made a compound cut to just slide in there real nice, and probably didn't have to, but I did. So working on the gable ends, and I'm cutting the corners, so Andrew can foam in there easier, but they get covered up with the 2x6, so it's really no big deal. And this is the view from up on the scaffold. You know, so you do some climbing, and this is where Andrew actually comes and foams. And I said, hey, let's film this so people know what's going on with how the foam works and stuff. And so that was pretty cool of them. And they needed a video anyway, so I'm like, let's do it.
We got Andrew here.
All right, hey everybody, it's Andrew with Lincoln Block. So we get a lot of questions about the foaming process for our product and also the foam kits themselves. So I'm going to go through this foam kit and kind of show you guys everything that's in it and show you how to set it up. So first off, we'll get our tape off of here. This is the 600 kit, and this is what your standard 600 kit is going to look like when you unbox it. So first, we're going to take out these hoses. They come with the kit. With the 600 kits, they come detached, so I'll show you how to hook those up a little bit later on. We're going to set those to the side for now. And you're going to get your tips, your gloves, a wrench to put the hoses on, and the Vaseline. And I'll show you how to use all that here in a second. Next, we got your safety booklet with a few instructions on there, but we're going to skip that today because you got me. And now, we're going to take out, this is the part A of the kit. So we have two parts to this foam kit. Basically what happens is these two chemicals are going to mix and create the chemical reaction in the foam. So now we'll bust open box B. And be aware when you're foaming, a lot of times the red likes to run out before the white. With the correct mixture, you're going to want to get it as close as possible, but it's okay if you have a little bit left in the red. So we'll go ahead and take this out of here. Okay. So, next I'm going to show you guys how to hook these hoses up. And be aware, the wrenches that come in these kits are not the best. So if you prefer using a different wrench, I'm not exactly sure what size it is, but you can use like a crescent with an adjustable mouth if you want to do that. So when you get your hoses, you're going to get one with little red stripes in it. The other one's just going to be completely clear. So we're going to hook the one with the red stripes up to the red tank. Pretty simple. Just kind of get it on there, Start hand tightening it at first. You're gonna get to a point where obviously you can't do it much more. And once you get to that point, go ahead and take your wrench. Like I said, these aren't the greatest wrenches, so I'm gonna do my best. Kind of gotta force it on there. Okay, so now we got our red hose on, so we're basically just gonna repeat the process on this side. Very simple. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. This one's going on a little bit smoother so I can get it hand tight a little bit better. Maybe I only need a few turns to tighten it. All right, guys, so now we got our hoses on the tank. So the next thing we're gonna do is unpack our little baggie they gave us here. So once you unzip this, you're gonna get a variety of tips in here. You get two colors. You got your yellow ones and you got your clear ones right here. So with Lincoln Block, we like to use the clear, and I'll tell you why. These yellow ones have a fan tip in them, and they're used mostly for traditional stick frame, any type of insulation you gotta do in between the rafters, stuff like that, and your joists, stuff like that. For these, it's just a normal open-ended spray tip, so we get a better stream of foam going into the wall, which allows us to get deeper down through multiple courses, so we like these ones better. You're also gonna get a pair of gloves. It looks like they gave me some extra ones in this kit. They thought I had an extra hand. These are nice because the stuff gets messy and it's not fun to get off. So we like to use the gloves when we do it. And then last, you're gonna get some Vaseline. Now you're gonna put the Vaseline before and after you use this kit. So I'll show you how to do that here in a second. Now first things first, we wanna get the pressure going through our hoses. So what you're gonna do is just turn these counterclockwise, open them up, and we like to open them up all the way. When you start spraying, you might notice your tanks are not distributing their contents evenly. If that's the case, then you can make adjustments as you go. So I'm just gonna take a little bit of this Vaseline and I'm gonna squirt it into the nozzle end of the tip, or of the gun, excuse me. Smear it around just a little bit. So I'll just take that and then kind of smear it around. It's gonna help you with your seal once you get the tip on. Now, for this demonstration, I'm gonna use a fan tip because I have to get to this job after. I don't wanna waste one, and we're just gonna throw this out right after we do the test spray. But we always recommend, before you start spraying into your surface, you wanna make sure you test and make sure your foam is mixing correctly. So to do that, we're just gonna take one of the cardboard boxes that the kit came in, and we're just gonna spray a little foam into it, watch and make sure it's growing properly, and once you got that, you should be good to go. So we're gonna, let me do this again so you guys can see. You have these little notches on the gun, and you got these little cutouts on the tip. So what you're gonna do is just line those up, turn them, I guess if it's facing out, it would be counterclockwise to your left. So yeah, you just turn that, and then you'll feel it kind of click and lock in. And then you have this little stopper switch right here. If you push it all the way in, it's off, so it's in the off position when you're like that. And when you click it out, you're ready to fire. So now we're gonna test our foam. Get one of these boxes up here. Okay, so we're just gonna take a little bit of this and spray it. And now we'll wait. And we're gonna watch the foam. Let's spray a little more. We're gonna watch the foam and make sure that it's properly growing. Sometimes it takes a little bit. But as you can see, if you watch closely, the foam is expanding nice and evenly. You wanna watch out for glossiness in the foam. If it looks glossy or soupy, that means that your mixture is not correct. And if that's the case, you might want to check your tip. You might have an issue in your tip. Check your hoses and make sure everything's working properly. So now we can see that the foam is growing pretty quickly, and it is expanding much more than what I had sprayed. So that's good. That's a good sign. Sometimes I go in and test it, give it a little poke, make sure it's solidifying a little bit. And from there, we should be good to go to start spraying into our wall. say we're done with our foaming, and we're gonna show you how to properly clean up and store your kit. So a lot of times with these 600 kits, you know, you'll get the job done and you'll still have a little bit of foam remaining. So you're gonna wanna have, DAP does a poly clean. This is a foam cleaner, and it's gonna help you clean your tools up and your spray gun after you're done using it. So first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna click from the on position to the off position in our gun. So we'll make sure that that's locked so we know that we're not gonna get any overspray or spray on accident. We're gonna take our tip off, right? And you'll see that there's a little bit of foam in here, and after a long job, you're gonna get a lot more buildup. This is a little bit less because it's only our demonstration tip. So what you're gonna do is take your polyclean, insert this nozzle, very simple, and then you're going to spray inside the gun, and it's going to disintegrate any type of foam, anything that's in there. And if you need, you can kind of dig in there with your finger and try to clean out a little bit. Sometimes I use a tool, like maybe a piece of wood or a paper clip, to kind of clear that out, but it looks pretty clean. It's mostly just Vaseline in there, which is good, because right after we do that, we're going to take our Vaseline and once again go over the tip of the gun to make sure that there's no mixture of any secretion that comes out while it's in storage. And if you're going for over a week time without using these kits and you have them in storage, make sure that you go in and you spray just a little bit of foam out so you can make sure and clear those hoses. We recommend that you store these in a heated environment. So anywhere from 75 to 80 degrees. I see a lot of comments that are talking about, you know, their mixture wasn't right, or it came out soupy, it came out glossy, and a lot of times the reason for that is the chemical is not at the right temperature for reaction. So what we like to do is when we store them, we put them in a heated cabinet that keeps them around the correct temperature, which, like I said, is around 75 to 80 degrees. And that way when you get out to your job, your chemicals are warm and you won't have any issues with the reaction taking place when you try to spray foam. Before I put my respirator on, I want to kind of just show you guys what we're doing so you can get an idea on how this product works with our Lincoln Block walls. So normally you'd probably be starting to foam once you're 4 or 5 courses up, but since we're towards the top of this structure, we're just doing a little bit of finish work. So we're not going to be foaming too deep. It's only about 2 courses deep. But what I'm going to be doing is just spraying into this cavity right here, watching very closely for where the foam's at. A little is a lot in this situation because this is expanding foam. So if you do too much, you're going to have to start cutting out foam and stuffing it in other places in the wall, and that's just going to make you take longer. So I want to make one more point before I start. You want to make sure when you're doing this stuff that you make sure you have all your safety equipment, make sure you have some gloves, make sure you have some type of glasses, and make sure you have some type of mask or respirator, especially if you're working in a closed environment where the vapors can stay in that area. You want to make sure that you're not breathing that in because this is a toxic product, and you want to make sure that you're protected. All right, y'all, so a few more things. So we always recommend to start foaming your wall about 4 to 5 courses down. So when you have about 4 to 5 courses of unfoamed wall, that's when you want to start. Now I want to add that when you're doing this, you want to make sure that you're not just filling one section all the way to the top. You want to kind of evenly distribute your foam throughout, and there's a couple reasons for this. Number one is you're working with expanding foam. So you might fill it to a certain level thinking that the foam's going to stop, but it's going to keep rising and you're going to waste a bunch of material. And another reason is being that this is a chemical, so you're going to get some heat when it reacts, and you don't want too much heat to go on while you're spraying your foam. So when you do it in sections, you kind of let the chemical set up, cool down, and then you can go for your next layer. So when you're filling your courses, you want to make sure, like I said earlier, that you're doing it incrementally because you're working with an expanding foam, so you don't know exactly where it's going to stop. And that leads me to my next point. When say you're unfinished with the building of your wall and you need to add courses on top, well then you want to make sure that you're stopping just below the top of the course, because if you get overfill or anything like that, you're going to have to cut it out to make sure the placement of your next block is accurate. I would definitely recommend you go on DAP's website and confirm for yourself, along with everything you're learning into this video, just to make sure your process is smooth and safe.
Thanks, Andrew. Speaking of safety, I'll give you a tip here. If you have a long open area at the end of a block, the boards could flex when the saw hits it, and so what you want to do is insert a scrap piece of spline and hold it tight, and you'll get a nice flush cut at the end, and you'll stay safe. So since the foam was in, I finished building the gable ends to the very top, and he put some more foam in, and then I stained them with the Wood Defender product, and then I took off the plastic, and voila. Man, didn't that frickin' look good? That's a Lincoln block. I did that myself. Sweet. You walk in, I'll tell you what, it's like your own little lodge compared to that pole building the way it was. Man, what a difference. And it's going to be so well insulated, and it's obviously beautiful. So I guess, you could just have an awesome shop, or you could do a home office, or a she shed, or man cave, or a music studio, or a guest house, or an Airbnb, or a business, or I mean, it's endless, really, with Lincoln Block. I've built like a deck, and a playhouse and a shed, just with regular stick frame. But when I went up and saw these guys and saw this product, I was like, man, I should be able to do that. And sure enough, you can see I did it. And the nice thing is I did it during the winter. It's still winter. It rains a lot here, and I knew I could do it with the roof still on and take the walls off as I went. And so you can see that pile of walls there. Something like that beam there, I'm going to cover all that with trim, so it's going to look really nice. I mean, it already does. But and look at some of that wood. It's just so cool. And it's got that Wood Defender on it. It's an awesome product.